All right, second video of the day. Keeping the content coming. I wanted to talk about a little bit of a rare sports topic for the States, and that is rugby. I played, as some of you may know, I played largely basketball throughout high school, still played it when I was in college in terms of intramurals, and just loved the game, so I was always playing, right? But I also played rugby for a club team in Galveston for 5 years, and a little bit for Bay Area as well. Right out of college around 2010. It was just a club team just for fun. It was Division III, although Bay Area is Division II technically. So, again, I largely did it for fun. And sort of how I got into it, right, was my uncle had always played and always wanted me to play because I was really aggressive in basketball, right? And, I am not so much built for basketball. I'm a bit of a stocky, squatty guy for basketball, even though I'm 6 foot, right, which is sort of taller than just the average person. But for basketball, 6 foot's not exactly that tall. But, it was always a little bit of a thicker guard kind of build, if you want to put it that way. Think about a Raymond Felton, I guess, something like that. But anyway, so after high school and I go to college, I'm kind of just playing intramurals, pick up basketball for fun. And about 3 or 4 years, junior, senior year in college, I'm just way too competitive, right? Like I'm kind of almost taking the joy out of it for everyone else, which is not necessarily good or bad, right? Like I want to win, but just me personally, right? I really wanted to compete, and I was serious about it. And like, this is just pickup basketball, right? Like people are going there to get a sweat and run with their friends, and I'm still sort of treating it like it's, an AAU tournament or something, right? And so I kind of decided like, hey, I should go try and play rugby. And my freshman year, I did try and go play rugby, but I did like it, but I didn't really conceptually get the game. I only was there for like a couple months, went to like a couple clinics, played in a game or two, but just didn't get it, right? I didn't have the time. So like it wasn't really like, I didn't really pick up on it, right? And I wasn't there for that long. But like my senior year, I decided like, well, I'll go back out and try, because I need to do something else as an outlet. And, my uncle had always said I should go play. So I was like, fine, I'll go try. I'll go play, And so I went out, and rugby's also what got me in the weight room too, because at the time I was maybe like 6 foot 190, 6 foot 200, something like that. Maybe 180 to 200. I can't quite remember, but something around there, right? And, quickly saw like, if I want to play rugby, I probably should put on a little bit of weight, which got me into the weight room. So that was another good thing that came of it. But anyways, I love basketball, and I hate to be cliche and kind of quote Joe Rogan, but he had like this one clip where he's talking about how basketball is so chaotic, right? There's so much going on, and it's like, I guess he's more or less talking about shooting a basketball, right? And then how in all of this chaos, right, you have to sort of pull up and shoot a basketball with just absolute precision and concentration amidst all of these things that are going on, right?
If you think about professional basketball, you watch an NBA game, and all the thought that's involved in which way you're going, and the ability to explode, and then the ability to, in the middle of all that, land a precision shot into a hole. There's really not another sport like that.
And that's really why I think I always liked basketball, is that it's just like an ever-evolving process, of a game, of where you're always analyzing information. You're always taking in what the other team is doing. You have to figure out what people's strengths and weaknesses are. You have to be good at a multitude of things, right? There's very few people who can just be great at one or two things and be successful in basketball, right? You have to be able to pass, to dribble, take care of the ball, play on-ball, off-ball defense. full court, half court sets, just all of it, right? You have to have a good head game as well as a good like physical game, right? And you have to constantly be analyzing and taking in what's going on so that you're one step ahead or at least on the same pace with your competition, right? And that's what I've always liked about basketball is offense, defense, transition, half court, full court, in the posts, a mid-range turnaround, 3-point shot from deep. There's just so many aspects of the game that you can work on and be good at, and that you have to learn and sort of master in a way. And one thing that I always liked about basketball, right, is like, football, besides the weight room, there's really no way to practice football on your own, right? Besides maybe running hills or something like that, right? But basketball, like, you can get in the weight room too and work on your sort of athleticism or your coordination and things. But like the skill of basketball is just such, like you never truly master it, right? You never truly are so good at shooting that you never miss a shot. That kind of thing, right? Like you can sit out in the driveway for hours and work on your weak hand or work on a turnaround from the left and right elbow or just whatever, right? Like you can just by yourself work on so many aspects of the game. I think that's what I always liked about it as well. But anyway, so what I find why I bring these two sports up is they're my two favorite sports, but as I began to play rugby, I realized they translated so well to each other, right? So essentially in rugby, you have the big guys and the little guys. You have the packs and the backs. And for any of you who ever seen rugby, right, the big scrum that you see sometimes on TV, that's essentially the quote-unquote big guys, right? That's your front court, right? And then, of course, you have your backs. That's your back court. Those are your little guys, your faster guys, your shifty guys, right? Guys who also can pass a lot better, too, things like that, right? So the sort of breakup of even how the positions are played are actually similar in more ways than you would think. There's a lot of lateral movement, especially if you're playing in the back line, right? You have to play team defense is like a big thing. You have to talk and communicate. You have to be on the same page. As in basketball, you're trying to defend a half court. In rugby, you're trying to defend a line, right? So like even the team defense is very similar. One thing that I've always liked about basketball too is, at any point a big guy might have to do little guy things, and at any point a little guy might have to do big guy things, and that's still very true in rugby, right? You could be in the chaos of a rugby game, a big guy might have to line up against a smaller, quicker, faster player on the other side, and have to hold his responsibility and not let that guy get around him, right? Or a little guy, every so often you might be lined up across a big guy, and you better get in a good position to make the tackle and not let him just run you over, right? And so I always like that about basketball and rugby as well. As a little guy, you might get posted up from time to time, and as a big guy, you might find yourself out on an island on the wing against a guard, right? That kind of thing, right? So I just found the translation of how you play basketball very similar to rugby in more ways than people would think. The pace is also the same. In basketball, you might need to be really quick for 1 to 3 steps in a smaller area, or you might need to run full court, right? And rugby's very much the same. You need to, in times there are tight quarters you have to be good at and know what's going on, and then at other times you're out in the open field running, trying to make plays on the move, right? And so I've just always found the two sports more similar than people would maybe think. And there's just in basketball, like if you make a mistake, the other team scores 2 points or gets an open shot, or you commit a turnover, right? Which is obviously bad. In rugby, if you make a mistake, like your player gets knocked into the dirt, your teammate, or he gets physically punished, and you lose the ball, correct? Like there's just there's so many similarities to it, except for maybe the physical punishment, right? Where basketball is more of a skill demanding sport, rugby is kind of less of that, but more of a physically demanding sport, correct? Even out of bounds plays, right? I'll show some out of bounds clips here. There's even set out of bounds plays in rugby and things like that too, right? And maybe I can make another video about plays and positions and how it really is, but I just want to talk about my time playing rugby, like compared to basketball, in my two favorite sports, and how they're just more similar than I think people would realize or understand, right? And, a lot of rugby guys think basketball players are, weak or, can't take physical punishment, which there may be some truth to that, right? But the pace and the sort of head game of them are very similar. And I felt like when I played, I picked up on rugby much quicker than most people. Yes, I'm a little bit more of like an aggressive player when I do things, because I feel like if you're going to mess up, you might as well mess up going 100 miles an hour, and you can learn quicker and better from that than trying to analyze everything when you first start something new and you're maybe a little too hesitant, or you're trying to see everything from every angle and you don't really know how that plays out until you actually do it, right? And so for that reason, maybe I picked it up. But, as I began to like really get into rugby more and more, the pace, I guess the pace is a good way, the pace and like the tempo and the responsibilities and things like that, I think rugby and basketball are very similar. Like they really are, like more than football, more than hockey or any other sport. I really do think basketball translates into rugby more than people would know. And yeah, like that's just kind of, I just wanted to rant about that. I think rugby's I don't understand why rugby's not a more popular sport in America, seeing how popular football is. You figure there's tons of guys out there, athletic, freaks that play football that didn't make it to the pros after college, or, things of this nature that would go play on a club team, or, there's now semi-professional rugby in America. Why more of those guys aren't playing. I'm sure there are some, there are a lot, I'm sure, but I just feel like rugby overall would just be a bigger sport in America than what it is. And I think it is growing. It definitely has grown the last 5 to 10 years. There's no doubt about that. But I still just think it would be much bigger here, given how much we love football, right? I would just think people would like rugby a lot more than what they do. But I think that just comes from a lack of understanding the rules. There's going to be a little bit of a learning curve there, which is like with anything else. But that's just kind of my rant on rugby and basketball. Rugby. One of the main things that rugby definitely has in spades over any other sport, right, is it is a social game. And what do I mean by this is, I kind of mentioned how there is a physical punishment, right, for not being there for your teammate and not sort of, in basketball you give up 2 points when you mess up. And, one thing I guess rugby and football have in common is like if you don't do your job, you could get someone hurt in a way. Like someone on your team could just get crushed because you didn't do your job right. If a lineman doesn't block the edge rusher or whatever, he's just going to crush your quarterback. If a quarterback puts up a hospital pass a little too high, the wide receiver is going to get crushed, right? So a lot of that is similar in terms of rugby. If you don't have your team's back, or if you're not there to sort of back him up a lot of times, or you don't do the right thing, someone's gonna get some physical punishment dealt out to him, and that's never fun. It's never a good feeling to be the reason why your teammate got crushed, right? But one thing about rugby that was, and I didn't realize this when I first started playing, is that it's as much a social game as it is an actual game on the field. And one of the greatest quotes I ever heard about rugby is, soccer is a gentleman's game played by hooligans. Rugby is a hooligan's game played by gentlemen. And that largely is true, right? Like once the game's over, the host team, like, we might go to San Antonio or Austin or something like that, or people would come down to Galveston. The host team is responsible for hosting the visiting team at a bar or something like that, and making sure that we have a good time after the game. As soon as the game's over, everyone's all laughs, already drinking beer and stuff like that, right? Providing food, whatever it is, right? Going out, later that night, etc., right? And it's just so much fun, right? There were so many people who maybe weren't that good at rugby, right? But if you came out to practice and you gave it your all, even if you didn't play in the games, right? It was still fun to be around the team and come out afterwards. And, guys might give you crap for not being good enough to play or whatever, but like you were still part of the team, right? You were still one of the guys, and it was just always a blast, right? And that's definitely one of the things about rugby. Rugby has that in spades over any other sport. I really don't care what it is, right? No one will ever convince me otherwise that soccer or basketball or football has a better sort of team camaraderie in terms of off the field activities or things like that than what rugby does. It's just no way. There's no way that's possible. So, yeah, I mean, rugby is an amazing sport. I think it should get more love. I even played while I was in Galveston. I played with a guy. Essentially, I played flank in rugby 99% of the time. I played a little back line, but not so much. I played flanker, and I played with a guy who played 8-man, essentially meaning out of the scrum, a lot of the times, if he came off my side, essentially I was the guy right behind him or playing next to him whenever, those scrums would break. But he played like under 19 in Ireland. He played for the Houston SaberCats, and he actually played on the Eagles, which is the national team for America, for a couple years, I believe. So, I definitely got to see some good rugby, play some good rugby, even though it was Division III. I've definitely seen some guys who were just freaks, who just were amazing players. And, there's just nothing like it. There really isn't. Like, as much as I love the game of basketball, right, it's my favorite sport, definitely. If I had to throw in the sport itself with the people that you play with and what happens off the court or off the field afterwards, I probably got to give it to rugby overall. It really is just an incredible experience. Obviously, if you don't mind the physical punishment, if injury's not a big worry for you, I would tell you to go out and find a team. 100% guarantee they'll take you with open arms, teach you the game, what have you. If you're still a young buck and you want to go find something to do. They even have like over 40 tournaments, over 40-year-old tournaments, right? Like, it's just such a great game. It really is a lot of organized chaos, like basketball, head on a swivel kind of thing. And there's just nothing like it. It really isn't. But yeah, that was just my 2 cents on. And the Rugby World Cup is coming up as well, so that's kind of what prompted me to do this. But yeah, that's just my 2 cents on rugby and basketball. Again, I'm just making a video, spitting out how I feel. And again, this channel just shows its absolute juggernaut of the sports knowledge that it is. So, yeah, in fact, I was thinking I might make a rugby little compilation video or something. But yeah, that's my video, and I'm sure, if there's anyone out there who hears this and like played a lot of rugby or anything like that, and they want to do a sit-down interview or something, I think that'd be a good idea. It'd be a lot of fun. I'll maybe see if I can't contact that guy I mentioned, and maybe he'll want to sit down and do an interview. It'd be kind of cool, actually. So, yeah, it's actually a good idea. But I just want to get on here and rant about rugby. How it's just an awesome sport. It really is an amazing experience. Anyone who's interested in it, I advise you to go do it. But yeah, that's my video, and as always, I'll see you guys on the next one.